County Community Library, and today we're going to make pumpkin donut drops. They're inspired by the Dunkin' Donuts Pumpkin Munchkins, and they're from the book Taste of Home Copycat Restaurant Favorites. So I've got some of my ingredients mixed together already, and I have the recipe. The original recipe makes 7 dozen donuts, and I don't really want to eat 7 dozen donuts, so I cut it in half if you want to copy this down. So I started with 1 egg, which is half the original recipe, 5/8 cup of sugar, and 1 tablespoon of shortening, which I've already mixed together in this bowl. You want to mix until you don't see any more lumps of shortening, and I just mixed mine with the hand mixer. Then I added 1/2 can of canned pumpkin, not the pumpkin pie mix, but just canned pumpkin, a teaspoon of white vinegar, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. So I have that all mixed together in my bowl here. And I'm going to set that aside while I mix up my dry ingredients, which are 1.5 cups of flour, and I keep my flour in this nice canister. And a kind of a surprising ingredient to me is a 1/4 cup of dry milk powder, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. So I put my dry ingredients into this bowl, and I'm going to whisk those together. And then when I get that whisked, I'm going to combine that and another surprise ingredient, lemon lime soda. So I'm going to combine half of my dry ingredients into my wet ingredients and half of my lemon lime soda, the rest of my dry ingredients, the rest of my lemon lime soda, and mix the whole thing together, and we'll have a cake batter. These are cake donuts, not yeast donuts. No yeast involved. It makes them much easier. Then we're going to come back, and I'm going to fry my donuts in a small skillet, because you don't want to fry too many at one time. So you need a small skillet with kind of deep sides, a thermometer, and vegetable oil. And you're also going to need a little dish of just plain sugar to roll your donuts in after you fry them. So I'm going to mix this all together and come back and show you how to fry these pumpkin donut drops. I forgot to mention in our last segment that I put 1/4 cup of Sprite in the batter, or you could use 7-Up or any of those type of sodas. So you can see my batter is very thick. And also I have about 1/2 inch of vegetable oil in my skillet here. Now if you want to use a deep fryer or an electric skillet, that would even be better, because those keep your oil at a constant temperature. I've got mine between a medium and medium-high setting on my stove, and if it gets too hot, I'm going to pull it off and just let it cool down a little bit. So the recipe says to use a teaspoon of batter, and you do not want to use more than a teaspoon of batter, because these are going to really puff up when they hit that oil. So I'm just going to start with a small amount here, and I'm only going to make a few. I don't want to crowd my skillet, and I want to be able to keep track of what I'm doing here. So you're going to fry each one about 2 minutes. Kind of see how these go. I'm only going to make a few. And I cannot make mine perfectly round. Of course, in the cookbook, all the donuts were perfectly round. And you can see how they're puffing up and getting brown. And they're definitely not round, but I promise you they'll taste just as good as the ones that are. Now the recipe said to fry these at 375. I found that 375 was just a little too hot for my stove, for my skillet, and the donuts were frying a little faster than I wanted them to. So I like to keep mine between 350 and 375. And like I said, if it gets too hot, I'm just going to slide it off the burner here and let it cool down a little. And once these are done frying, I'm going to drain them on my paper towel here. Be careful your paper towel's not too close to your burner. And then I'm going to roll them in my sugar here, and we'll be all set. So I'm going to give them one more flip here. Sometimes they just flip over all on their own. Oh, I got one that's kind of round. So then I'm going to drain them on my paper towels. that out of my way for now. And while they're still warm, they don't have to be hot out of the skillet, but you want them to still be warm. I'm going to roll them in the sugar. That way the sugar will stick to it. Put those on my pretty napkin over here. And we'll be ready to try one. Like I say, they aren't perfectly round, but they are very tasty. And there we go. Pumpkin donut drops. Enjoy.